Okay, when you think about Norse mythology, who's the first god that pops into your head? I'm guessing it's probably Odin, right? The all-father, super wise, a bit of a schemer. Or maybe it's Thor, the big guy with the hammer. These are the heroes we all know from movies and stories. It's this whole world of epic battles, giant halls, a pretty clear-cut family of gods. But, and this is a big but, what if that's not even the beginning of the story? What if that's just the surface? So let's just strip all of that familiar stuff away for a second. Before all the heroes and the grand stories, the mindset of the ancient northern peoples was ruled by something completely different. It's been described as a raw, animistic terror. I mean, just think about that phrase. It points to a belief system that was way, way darker, more primal than anything we're used to. And that, right there, leads us to the big question we're tackling today. If Odin's world wasn't the starting point, then what was? What on earth did people believe in before their gods turned into these heroic figures? Well, we're going to peel back those layers and see what we can find. All right, first things first, let's set the stage with what we do know. Let's call it the Age of Odin. This is the pantheon that's familiar to us, right? It's all very structured. You've got Odin in charge of things like war and wisdom. It's a world that runs on order, on oaths, and these huge cosmic fights between the gods and the giants. It's dangerous, for sure, but it makes sense. There are rules. And you can really see the massive difference here. On one side, you have that Odinic pantheon, all order and structure. But then look at the other side, the primal forces. This is what came before. And this wasn't something you thought about or reasoned with. No, this was a system you felt deep in your gut. It was pure chaos, just raw emotion and the completely untamed power of nature. I mean, the jump from that to Odin's world, that's a gigantic shift in how people saw everything. So let's dive right into that shadow. Wotan, which is just an older Germanic name for Odin, by the way, casts a pretty long shadow. And in that shadow is where we find this older, forgotten, much more visceral belief system. We're stepping past the myths we know and digging into the forces that were lurking in the dark, long before the Age of Heroes. Now, to really get a handle on this older world, there's a key term we need to know: chthonic forces. Chthonic is a Greek word that basically means of the earth, like in it, under it, part of it. So we're not talking about gods living up in the clouds here. These are powers that come from the underworld, from the soil itself, maybe even from the subconscious. They're the raw, wild energies of the earth. And these words, man, they just nail the vibe of these forces perfectly. They were primal, ancient, fundamental stuff. They were chaotic, completely resisting any kind of order. Shadowed, meaning they were hidden, maybe on purpose. Untamed. Good luck trying to control these things. And then probably the most important one, visceral. This wasn't something you studied. It was a gut feeling, a real physical terror. Okay, I know what you're thinking. This all sounds super abstract, doesn't it? I mean, how are we supposed to even picture these ancient, shadowy forces? Well, this is where things get really interesting, because a very modern approach is helping us do just that. And it's a huge challenge, for sure. I mean, by their very nature, these things were meant to be formless, hard to grasp. This was a time before people started giving their gods human faces and complicated family drama. So if there aren't any statues, no detailed myths, how could we possibly see what they saw? Believe it or not, the answer is technology. Researchers are actually using AI to try and bridge that gap in our understanding. Here's how it works. First, they take all those core ideas from back then, that sense of terror, of cosmic chaos. Then they isolate those themes and basically feed all of that abstract information to an AI. And what the AI spits out are visual interpretations. It's like a modern echo, giving us a tiny glimpse of what these wild forces might have looked like inside someone's mind all those centuries ago. So when you put all of this together, you get a totally new way of looking at Germanic mythology. You realize it wasn't just one static story that always existed. It was an evolution. It was this incredible journey from a universe of pure, terrifying chaos to one with at least some kind of order. And here's the absolute key takeaway. The story of these myths, it's really the story of people trying to make sense of a world that felt terrifying and completely out of control. So, bit by bit, they built this structured pantheon with rules and heroes, almost like a wall to protect them from the memory of that overwhelming primal chaos. And that's why all this is so important. Those heroic tales we all know and love, Odin's clever plans, Thor's epic strength, they didn't just appear out of nowhere.
they were built right on top of a foundation of something much older and way, way darker. You could almost say the heroes had to be created as a defense against the memory of that raw, animistic terror.
And that kind of leaves us with one last really fascinating thought. This whole journey from chaos to order, it's not just a Germanic thing. It makes you wonder, right? What other ancient forces, what other primal terrors and wild beliefs are buried just under the surface of all the other stories we think we know so well?